Hello, fellow travelers, and welcome to the Versus Stars podcast. How my loyal listeners, thank you for your continued support. And remember, click that subscribe button, everybody. It's an amazing episode because Jennifer Khoe boards the mothership. You know her as Xiao from Kung Fu on the CW. Now come aboard as we go traversing the stars. Hello, Miss Khoe. Thank you so much for coming to Versus Stars podcast.
Hey, Jeff, thanks so much for having me.
Totally my pleasure. So I always start off with a question of inspiration. So what inspired your love of acting and who your earliest influences?
Oh my gosh. My earliest influence has got to be, the Ghostbusters franchise growing up. I was just obsessed. I wanted to be a Ghostbuster when I was growing up. I would always just dress up and pretend to capture ghosts around the house with my brother. And what was the first question? What was my acting inspiration?
Who your earliest influences? Yes.
Oh, okay. So yeah, the Ghostbusters. And then I don't know if everyone remembers that show, Who's the Boss, but Alyssa
Yes.
Milano was the girl in it. And I saw her and I was like, I want to be an actor. She was just this spunky little tomboy, person. And I thought she was pretty cool.
Well, those are definitely some good picks. Now, if I read about you, at least what's correct what I read about you, that you graduated from the University of California, San Diego with a BS in cognitive neuroscience and a law minor.
I did. Very
Holy
useful
crap.
in my acting career. Yes.
So you basically decided to go for some extremely hard level things to start off with and be like, practice classes, I guess.
Yeah. I thought it'd be interesting. I love learning. I love science. I love learning about how the brain works and thought I was going to go to law school. Didn't end up going that route. And if I ever get to play a crazy mad scientist or a doctor or a lawyer in a movie or a TV show, then, I'll have the jargon down.
Well, like you said, those are some extremely impressive career choices to go to school for.
Oh, thank you. Very useful, obviously.
So when you decided, so you're moving, let's say when you're in college and you have your degree in neuroscience, you have your law minor. What happened that made you think I'm going to transition to acting, which is obviously a far safer career path?
Oh, much safer, much more stable.
Right.
Definitely I can make a lot of money there. Well, it's been quite a journey, I think, since I graduated college. It's interesting when you go away to school, right? You get kicked out of your house and you're like, okay, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you're what, 19, 18, 19. So you choose a path. And then I worked in the corporate world for a little bit before moving out to Southern Los Angeles. I did the LA thing. I think what happens is there's so much wonderful creative energy out in LA. And I started spending a little bit more time on set and my career actually started behind the camera as a producer. And, next thing you know, 1 year, 5 years ago, I was like, you know what? I'm not getting any younger. I've always loved performing. I love storytelling and I wanted to jump in front of the camera. So that's how we went from neuroscience to acting, I guess, in a nutshell.
So how far ago then did the acting bug bite you?
About 5 years ago. The acting bug has always probably been in my blood ever since I was little. I love just performing in front of people and things and just making up and telling stories and things like that. So it's always been there. It just, never really came out until 5 years ago when I was, oh, maybe I can do something with this.
So what happened 5 years ago?
I don't know. I think it was just, spending more time on set. I have a production company here in LA and I was like, I loved storytelling and I'd always wanted to jump in front of the camera. And I'm kind of the type of person that is like, you know what, if not now, when? So I was, took the chance and leaped in front. And it's been a really tough but rewarding journey. And I continue to, work hard and try to book more and do more interesting things.
So how do you compare the challenges of acting to the challenges of neuroscience and law?
You know what? Honestly, Jeff, if I look back at any of my old notebooks from college, I remember I was sorting out some stuff in my garage and I was looking at my old test papers and stuff. And I couldn't even answer half of those questions now that were given to me on those exams. But I would say if I had to find a parallel between the two, it is discipline. A lot of hard work and discipline. People don't realize acting is just as much of a business as anything. And you have to put in the work and be dedicated and be disciplined. You don't just show up and say, hey, here I am, book me. I'm ready to, be in front of the camera now. So if anything, if I have to take it's the work ethic and the dedication and the organization even that you learn from all your skills in college, from any of your corporate jobs that you ever do. And you're saying, and when you get to an actor, you're like, okay, I am a business now. How do I structure my day? How do I make sure I'm, reaching out to the right contacts, and how do I like build my resume? So if I had to, I guess, find any parallels between the two, that would probably be it.
So now, well, obviously you were successful. You now recur as Xiao on Kung Fu. So how do you get involved with the project, and what excited you about the project?
Oh, wow. Well, I got involved with the project like any other, project I've been in. I got an audition for it. And the casting director, bless her heart, she was really rooting for me. I actually auditioned for that show 12 times for different roles.
Oh, wow.
And they always say the right when the right role finds you. And I was so blessed because this was such a fun role to play. But I got the audition. I taped it over with a friend here. We do self tapes here, and turned it in. And I was like, I think this is a good one. But you audition and then you throw it out into the universe, try to forget about it. But it was really exciting because I love playing bad guy characters. I think everybody secretly wants to play the bad guy too, or the villain. And you get to have a little bit more fun with it. So it really excited me learning about this character and her backstory and things like that. And you put it out there and you cross your fingers and hope that they like it.
I can't imagine how nerve-breaking the wrecking that must be to do a video, send it out, and then either you'll hear something and maybe it's good, or I guess if it's not good, you just don't hear anything.
No news. In this case, no news is not good news. But yeah, I mean, you don't really get any feedback because the landscape's changed quite a bit since the pandemic. We've always done what's called these self-tape auditions, but now we don't go into the room at all, or they haven't quite really started bringing people back. So you really kind of do feel like a little bit more isolated and on your own. You don't get feedback the same as you would when you're working with a casting director in the room.
So when you don't get the call back, how do you are able to think about, is it the video or was it not the right role, and how do you mentally handle that?
How do you mentally handle that? That's a great question. I think you start to learn as you do more of these year over year. You turn in your tape, and you're only human. You get attached to certain roles more than others, but you have to learn how to let it go, because there's so much that's out of your control in this industry. And because I've worked on the other side of the camera as a producer, I've done casting as well. You just know it's like, yeah, there's so much that's out of your control, whether it's, oh, the other person that they booked is 5'5" and you're only 5'2", so that doesn't quite work. Like there's just so many factors that you can't control. So I always say, whenever I do have an audition, I like to treat myself. I'll just go get ice cream or something like that. The audition, and getting the audition is the gift. Truly, I think you have to think of it that way, because you got chosen out of thousands of people that could have read for a role, and you got a chance to work and show casting and the network what you've got. So
when you get a role like Xiao, how did they tell you anything about the character? How do you approach it and make sure Xiao is yours and you can make it your own?
Yeah, well, this one's really interesting. I got a little bit more information on this character than I do in a lot of roles, because Xiao appeared actually in season 2, who was played by another actress, Vanessa Khoe, who's absolutely so talented and wonderful. So for this audition, they actually sent a clip of her performance in the previous season, and they said, okay, use this as a baseline, but don't feel like you have to mimic her, and just make it your own, but use this kind of as your baseline. So that was really cool to see somebody else playing the character and saying, we're going to bring this back and cast someone else. So let's see what you can do with it. And so I actually ended up sending in 2 takes. One was more like that, and one was like kind of a little bit more off the cuff. Yeah.
So Kung Fu, for those who don't know, is based on a 1970s television series.
Yeah.
So were you a fan, or were you aware of the series when you auditioned for it?
I wasn't quite born yet, because it was in the 70s, but you do a little bit of research whenever you get an audition, and you try to look up if it's a remake, or kind of what that is, or you watch old episodes to see what you're getting into. But this remake is a completely different thing. It's completely reimagined, modern day in San Francisco. It's not a Western martial arts movie like the 70s show was. So I didn't know too much about it, but I definitely looked it up and saw what it was about. So,
Well, I mean, the show has an amazing cast. Just some of the people who are on it: Olivia Lang. I would probably get the name wrong. Z Ma.
Olivia Liang, yeah.
So everyone who knows the show knows I'm horrible with names.
Yeah, yeah.
Kim Rhodes is on it as well. So, what is the experience? What was the experience like on set with these actors? And is it difficult to get the chemistry rolling as a recurring character?
Yeah, so I mean, I like to say when you hop onto a show that's been on for a few seasons, you're like the new kid at school. It's like your first day. You come in with your backpack and you're a little bit nervous. You don't know what it's going to be like, but this cast and crew has been so phenomenal to work with. They were so welcoming from day one and truly felt like a family. It was so wonderful to step on a set and people introduce themselves, and Olivia Lang, she even showed up to set on the day she wasn't working just to come hang out and say hi and check out check the shootout. And this is the first time I've worked on a Asian led cast, and it felt so cool. It felt really, really cool. And a lot of the crew too, and stuff like that. So it felt like family, and they've created a really wonderful environment on that show.
And I think that's a great. And how, I mean, is there pressure knowing that you are representing or have representation of an Asian cast that's not as common on TV as it?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're definitely getting there. I definitely don't feel pressure. I just feel a great sense of pride, being able to be on a show that's breaking boundaries and things like that.
When as a recurring character, you find yourself when you're on the set, be like, go up to the writer, like, hey, you know what? I have a great idea for other scenes of this character. You want to you want to do something with it?
It is actually such a collaborative process. You obviously can't like go stray too far from the tone of the show. But you try to stick to what you did in your audition because they obviously liked, what you did there. And it is collaborative. The writers are on set, the director's obviously there. And it's like, if you do want to try something different, at least on this show, they've been very open and receptive to that, which is cool.
Now, as once again, as when you're recurring, obviously there's things happening among the other characters between the episodes that you're on. Does the continuity of those episodes that you're not in matter and how you interact, or how you understand a moment or a scene or a character you're playing against, or does that not factor?
Well, I definitely think it does, because especially for this character, for Xiao, she's the big bad of the season. So you need to kind of know what's been happening. And this season they spend a lot of the time figuring out like how do they defeat her. So it's important to kind of do a little bit of research, watch the episodes that you aren't in. We oftentimes don't get the script that we're not in, but it's good to see the episodes and see where the characters are at with how they feel about your character and things like that. And that definitely that helps me prepare for when I'm back on set again and filming.
So how do you develop your character over time across these episodes?
Oh, I don't know. It's moment to moment. And what's really cool in TV is that the writers are so awesome. They're writing on the fly too. So a lot of the times you don't know what's going to happen in the next one. And that's kind of the beauty of it. So when you get to your table read and you're reading it through the actors, like it's fun to hear everything out loud. And then, you have a couple days, maybe a day or two, and you can sit with the material a little bit and kind of plan out how you think you want to approach the material. And then sometimes you get on set and the director's like, yeah, no, don't do that. They're like, don't do that. Stick to what you know.
When you play a villain, is it difficult to kind of like rein in the character a bit, or do you kind of just want to like just go into it full bore and just be like the villain?
Yeah, for this one, it was funny because I think I got some feedback after I shot the first episode, and they're like, "Oh, we actually love the direction that you went with character. I kept it a little bit more contained versus going too big and crazy." I don't know if you remember like Hela from Thor.
Oh, yes, I did.
Blanchett, the fucking best villain ever. Sorry, pardon my French.
No, that's okay.
But she's so cool to watch, and I study her a lot when I get villain characters, and depending on the show you're auditioning for, you kind of tone it up or down. But I didn't go quite as big obviously than that, but it's so fun. It's so fun to play a villain. I think we all secretly have a dark side, and it's just fun to like explore these areas. And if you have a torture scene, you could just torture people and things like that. But obviously very different from who I am as a person. And when you call cut, you're in this like deep dark space, and you're like, "How was that?" Everyone's getting
So when you're playing villain, I mean, I assume you're not evil yourself. I'm just going to make the assumption. So
I
assuming
mustache twisting behind the yeah.
so how do you like access a character like that, and like where do you find that moment that where you can maybe not the word identify, but at least access it?
Yeah, I mean, I think with every anti-hero, every villain, anyone that does something bad never believes that they're doing something bad. They think they're doing something. They're doing something out of love or to, revenge, but it's to them, they don't view it as bad. So you never want to judge their actions that way. And so you just try to relate to, why is she doing what she's doing? What's been done to her in her past? Like if you've ever been backstabbed, by a friend or something like that. Obviously, you're not going to go about killing people and like that kind of thing. But you just understand where your character's motivations come from, and you never judge what they're doing and why they're doing it as something that's negative, because it's coming from a good place in their minds. So yeah, yeah, that's how.
So someone who, as you mentioned before, you are experienced as a producer as well. So not only you're an actor, but you're also a producer. So when you, and actually it's very extended resume as a producer as well. So what kind of deeper insights into acting, the moment, the scene does that give you, or in the whole process that helps you in roles like this?
It's funny because your producer brain is so different from your actor brain. It's like two completely different sides. And I would say, if anything, when I first started acting, I had to learn how to shut off my producer brain because, when you get on set, it's not you shouldn't be worried about, are people getting their lunch on time and like, is the crew doing what they're supposed to be doing, and is everyone happy that way? So I actually had to learn how to turn off my producer brain when I started acting. But if I could say anything it's really helped me is having such exposure behind the camera from everything that goes on behind the scenes. It really helps me appreciate the crew. I mean, that works so tirelessly to make this thing, and just from all the people above the line and all the way down to your like PAs. It truly takes a village to make something, and I'm so appreciative of all the work that these people put in, because I know what it takes, and I know what they put into it. So yeah.
So what, because you have this experience as a producer, and you're on many different sets, not just Kung Fu, but a bunch of others. Are you able to tell immediately what shows, episodes, programs, series, whatever, are being run properly, are going to be successful, and things? Like, are you sitting there going, "Ooh,
You're like, oh, this was no. You're like, oh, there's some shit going down there behind the scenes. I mean, it's funny because, like I said, I have to learn off to turn off my producer brain, because ignorance is bliss as an actor. You don't want to be kind of distracted by any of the behind the scenes shenanigans. But sometimes sets are very high stress places. So much has to get done. A lot of money's on the line, and you never have enough time. You're always running out of time. You're like chasing the sun, or like, you're already on your 12th, 13th, 14th hour of the day. So, sometimes you can feel that a little bit. People get a little frustrated, or you feel, that you have to rush to the finish line. But again, I try not to let that affect my performance as much, but I'm a little bit more aware of it, I think, because I have done so much production.
So when you're preparing for your scene, are you, because I know having spoken to many actors doing my interviews, some actors before scenes get very private. They want to need their moment to get into the scene. Some are just naturally gregarious and they just snap in when it's time. Like, how do you prepare for that moment when you're on set?
I think it depends on role to role. And I had to learn how to, I don't need a ton of time, by myself. I love like interacting with the cast and the crew and things like that. But I also think it just depends on what your scene is. If it's a very intense, emotional, or that kind of thing, I think I would definitely need just a little bit of space to mentally prep and getting into that headspace. On this show, on Kung Fu in particular, it's been so fun. So it's just like, being able to chat it up with people while you're there, and not taking yourself too seriously has always been kind of one of my things. And Yeah, so I enjoy kind of interacting with people and stuff like that. But if the scene calls for something a little bit more intense, I think I would probably take some time away.
So, if I read correctly, you are the producer and actor on an upcoming short called Trolled. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah, Trolled is coming out. That should be actually coming out pretty soon. So yeah, our production company does some short films as well. We're trying to deep dive a little bit more into the feature film world. So yeah, that one's coming out. That should be fun. That's like a little psychological thriller.
Did you want to tell our listeners a little bit about it?
Well, Trolled actually is, cyberbullying is very rampant in this
Mm.
day and age. So it's a dark twist on a character that is a cyberbully, and the tables secretly turn on him when he least expects it. So can't give away too much, but
So, what interested you in the project and to make you want to produce it and star in it, or well, star and act in it?
well, I got brought in. It was a fellow actor in our class, and my production company Sasha, my producing partner Sasha and I, we always like to take on interesting projects. A lot of times, obviously, if they're female minority led, we love to bring those stories to life. But just helping out fellow actors, creators in this industry is really important to us because I said, you can't do this thing alone. And if there's an interesting story that has like a good political message and things like that too, we love to try to read those and see what we can do to help people make stories come to life on the screen.
So, when you're making a short like Trolled, is the short film, the film, or is it a testing for a premise for a feature film, full length films? What is the goal of the short?
Well, Trolled kind of lives on its own. This one lives on its own. A lot of times we do shorts that are proof of concepts for a feature, maybe, or a TV show or a pilot. But Trolled is its own little contained thriller. Yeah.
So, when you have a script like Trolled, I guess the question is, how do you know it's gonna be good? Because sometimes I know sometimes things work on a script may not work on film. Some things work better on film than it did in a script. Like,
Yeah.
what are you looking for in quality?
You know, what's so interesting about filmmaking is that I think people need to learn how to let their expectations go, because whatever you imagine it to be in your head never ends up being what the final product is. It's always a version of that. And
Okay.
if you can learn how to, let your expectations go that way, and just know that the final products will always be a version of what you thought it was going to be, then you'll never be disappointed. Um, because it's really great, and you don't know. I mean, you do your best and try to put together the best cast and crew as you possibly can, and the magic doesn't just happen on set. It's afterwards in the edit and sound and color and all these things that bring the final thing together. And at the end of the day, I think the most important thing is if you like it, that's all that matters. When you're putting your work out there, it's really scary, and not everyone's going to love what you make, but as long as you're proud of it and you like it, that's the most important thing.
So, where could our listeners gonna be able? Where would they gonna be able to find Trolled when it comes out?
Um, we'll probably put it up on our YouTube channel once we can. I think it's going to run the festival route, so we're not quite allowed to make it public. But I'll definitely let you know the link once we have it, and share other projects that we have coming up. And what you can watch now, which is really fun. I know Christmas is over, but Mom Fight is another really fun action comedy short that we did a couple years ago. That one's a fun short that's available to the public online as well.
Very cool. You would tell the listeners about that one?
Well, Mom Fight is about two moms who basically kick each other's ass over the last kid over the last toy at the toy store. It's a fun, like I said, action comedy short, very much like Jingle All the Way meets Bad Moms. And I actually made that because I wanted to create an opportunity for myself to do more action auditions. So, we pulled together a world-class stunt team and just came up with some ridiculous choreography and shot this thing.
Now, am I reading too deeply if I think it's an allegory for commercialism or how people seek out today's commercialism?
Oh, you mean like the last toy at the toy store?
Right, right.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I made a meme about it when in the pandemic, when there was a toilet paper shortage, and I put a toilet paper instead of the toy in the thing. But yeah, like moms got to do what they got to do and for their kids. And a lot of times it's just that like tickle me Elmo, that special toy at the end of the year. And your kid, your kid's going to have a crazy temper tantrum if he doesn't get it, or he's super spoiled. I don't know.
No, that's a great meme. I must admit, I remember very clearly with the pandemic. Me and my wife going out trying to find some rolls of toilet paper, and how many stores it took to find. It was quite a
Honestly,
thing.
who would have thought? It's the most insane shortage in history, probably. That and Eggos. I
Right,
remember
right. But I do remember that was gold at the time. I was like, you
Yeah,
probably
it
could
was.
buy
You could probably
black
sell it
market
for
toilet paper.
What were we thinking?
You know, it's gonna be one of those weird stories that you tell years later to people. Be like, I remember when. They'll be like, you guys were psycho.
Crazy. They're pretty soon in the future we'll have robots that wipe our ass. So
Right.
you don't need toilet paper.
So, actually, we also forgot to mention. So Kung Fu too. Where can our listeners find that?
Kung Fu. So we just started up after our mid-season finale. We're on episode 9. You can catch up and watch every single season, every single episode on the CW app, CW network, and it's all available if you have your subscription. Actually, you don't even need a subscription. You can watch every single season, every single episode on CW.
Very good, Ms. Khoe. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk with you. Thank you so much for talking with me.
Well, thanks so much, Jeff. All right, you too. Bye.
All right, have a great night.